Before running a test, testers typically have to prepare test data by collecting and/or creating it to execute the test. So what strategy do you follow to select test data for your tests? Preparing and managing test data can take up to 50% of your test execution time. Putting together a sound data strategy can help reduce this effort. There are a few strategies that you can employ, and keep in mind that they're not exclusive. So this means you can employ multiple strategies in your tests. Let's look at the basic strategy. In this strategy, you depend on the test data that is available to be used. If the data is not available, then it is created. There is also no data cleanup, meaning that the test data may not be used again for the same test. For example, if a test processes an order, then the same test cannot run again to process the same order. The basic strategy is simple to implement and requires no upfront work or maintenance. In most cases, however, this is an ineffective strategy. It can be made somewhat effective when combined with a test data management solution that manages a set of test data for you. Let's look at the production refresh strategy. In this strategy, production data is copied into the test environment and scrubbed clean of sensitive data. There are several advantages to this approach. First, there is no need to worry about data cleanup, because the test data can simply be refreshed to rerun the same tests. And second, testing against production data may uncover errors that occur in production caused by the data values. However, there are challenges in using production data. First, the production data may not contain the data that the test needs. So for example, if the test requires an account that was opened in the last hour and there is no account in production that was recently opened, well then the test wouldn't be able to run. And second, if the test data is present, the test may need to search for the specific data. And lastly, depending on the size of the data copied from production, the refresh process may take hours, if not days, which can obviously delay testing. Let's look at the synthetic creation strategy. In this strategy, the required test data is created when needed, whether it is part of the test itself or a batch job that runs separately. There are several advantages to this strategy as well. First, you have full control of the test data, creating the exact data that the test needs. And second, there will be no conflict or race conditions between multiple tests because each test has its own unique data to modify. And finally, there is little to no delay required to wait for the test data, which is a major problem faced with the data refresh strategy. The disadvantages to the synthetic creation strategy are: first, there is upfront work needed to create the data, whether through automation or manual. And second, the test data can quickly fill up the data store. So for example, if you have a suite of 100 test cases, each creating a user running 10 times a day, well, after a month of test, you'll have around 300,000 users in your system. Obviously, this problem can be alleviated by cleaning up the system every once in a while, but this requires additional work. There will be scenarios where synthetic data creation is not feasible at all, especially during end-to-end testing or user acceptance testing. There can be test cases that require test data with some form of history. For example, you may have a test case to test the end-to-end integration for a policy claim with a user that has opened a claim more than 3 times in the last year. And finally, let's talk about the gold data strategy. This strategy is similar to the production refresh strategy in that you refresh your data from another source. The difference is that the data source, which we call gold data, can contain data from production as well as data created specifically for certain tests. The gold data only contains data that are relevant to the tests and is generally much smaller than the data refresh from production, making the refresh process faster. Creating and maintaining gold data can be additional work depending on how often the data needs to be updated.